I sent it on Facebook and tweet.
All right. All right. We're rolling. And what's up, everybody? Um, Happy Jordy Nelson week to all you fantasy heads out there.
That's just terrible.
I really am. This is the Double S Project Fantasy Football. We're gonna have a little chat, talk a little fantasy football. I'm Previn I.W. Taylor of the Double S Project. With me, as always, is the Double S himself, Pete Double S Dukes. Also, fantasy football enthusiast slash expert slash guru slash general source of all things fantasy. Um, we're gonna kind of go with the theme that continue with the theme that we had last week. It's kind of like fantasy football for idiots. We discussed, a little bit about how the game is played, how it's set up, and rolling along, we're gonna discuss the draft. Now, our league, the Double S League, is already drafted. We drafted last week, which was the 16th. I think that was it. Yeah, Sunday the 16th. So as you might know, that's a bit on the early side. So a lot of us would like to draft a lot later. There was a reason why I scheduled a draft at that time. One is that the more optimal week, which is the one that just went past, is also my wedding anniversary. My wife ain't having me drafting on the night of our wedding anniversary. But I did a Periscope the other night. I think it was Monday night, to kind of touch on this, the early draft and the ramifications being injuries. You have an early draft, you have a roster, and then you watch guys start dropping like flies, and you're like, why in the world do we have an early draft? Well, you don't want an early draft, obviously. We had kind of, scheduled it, and that was a day that everybody, or the most amount of people, were available. I have the worst luck, as I said in the Periscope, worst luck with scheduling late drafts. When I first started playing, the league I was in used to draft on Labor Day weekend. But that was offline and local, so everybody got together in a restaurant, and we had a draft. As time went on and we got older, got married, got children, got online.
I got older, got married, got children.
Yeah, exactly, man. I'm trying to schedule something later, and I'm hearing, oh, we're on vacation. We got to take a trip because the kids last week before school. Got a family reunion. Got to wash my dog. Got to wash my car. Got to power wash something. So that's been my experience. I kind of still did a little bit earlier than we wanted to. And as a result, in the second round, I drafted Jordy Nelson. And now I don't have Jordy Nelson.
No, you don't. No, you still have him. You just can't use
him. What, man?
You still have him. You just can't use him.
Oh, no. I cut him. He's gone.
Sure, man. It's a keeper league, man.
It's not a keeper league.
Oh, okay.
We can make it a keeper league, so I get him.
Well, but that's a good point, though, to everybody out there, real quick. If you got keeper leagues, you got a decision to make. Because
I don't think you do.
Well, no, you can keep him on the roster, man. He'll be all right next year. People.
Let's touch on that.
Go ahead.
And let's touch on that. In setting up your league, you might have injured reserve, and if you do, and that's in accordance with your keeper rules, obviously that is an option.
Right.
I don't know what y'all's rules are out there. So,
but if you don't, then yeah, you might as well drop them.
Right. So moving along. Okay. You're about to set up a draft. You have a week, and your draft formats are usually one of a handful. Standard, which is snake format, 1 through 10, 1 through 12, 1 through 15, whatever. And then the second round, 15 back to 1. Third round, 1 back to 15, so on, so on, so on. Also, if you have a keeper league, a lot of the keeper leagues that I've either been associated with or talked to other owners or commissioners who had them, they didn't go with a snake format because obviously it's keeper, you're retaining better players, and more than likely your end of the season record reflects that you got bad teams with bad players coming back, or nobody who's good enough to keep. So it would behoove you to kind of structure kind of standard like the NFL, 1 through 12, 1 through 15, and then the next round 1 through 12, 1 through 15. Then you got out there the auction leagues, which I've never been a part of. I've heard those drafts take forever. Got anything to add to that?
Yeah. No, actually, no, I don't. I
Okay.
don't.
All right. So we know a lot about a lot of things, but we don't
That's
know much about auction leagues.
yeah. It's yeah. I mean, I get all. I mean, basically, the auction leagues just get a certain amount. You get a certain amount of cash, and then you audit out. Pay out for certain type of players. I mean, auction off for certain players and everything. But those type of leagues. I mean, I think that's more. I don't know. That just to me, that's just too much work. I'd rather just.
It is.
It's
And
too
the thing
much
about
work, in my
auction league
opinion.
is you can't have an
I get
auction
it
league
though.
without a salary. And so you got guys out there with calculators and spreadsheets and accounting books and all that stuff, trying to keep tab of how much money they have left as they pick up players. So there's definitely certain strategies within putting together a team through an auction league. Do you spend all your money on 2 or 3 big name players, or do you kind of spread your cash out a bunch amongst the second tier players that are and hope that they're consistent? It's a different approach, and that kind of leads you to back to your standard league. In this case, you get the Yahoo league that we have, and I'm sure the other leagues that Pizza is current. Well, no, he's got the keeper league, so
Mm-hmm.
their picking order is pretty much set. But if you're just jumping into a Yahoo league or NFL league or ESPN league, a lot of the times your draft order is randomized. That's how we set ours up, and you won't really know where you are until about 25, 30 minutes before that draft. So in preparation for that, what I like to do is, and this is one of those things where do as I say, not as I do. I like to participate leading up to it in any number of mock drafts.
Right.
And when you're like, for example, a Yahoo league, you can take a peek and see if you're interested in entering a particular mock draft, and it'll give you your order where you are in the draft order with time to back out if you don't want to participate. So what I did was I kind of jumped around to get a scenario of where I was at in either early in the draft, like picks 1 or 2 or 3, mid
Mm-hmm.
rounds in the draft, picks 5, 6 or 7, or late, and
Mm-hmm.
3 drafts amongst all those positions to kind of get an idea of who is going where, what other owners are thinking about as they're drafting, what can you expect to see. And the key to that is my approach has been in the past. Go through those drafts. You can either, to save yourself time, just let the website auto draft for you, or you can sit through it and draft yourself, and then go back and look at your picks as it went down and see where else in that round or early in the next round, where was there a better player or another
Yeah.
player that you really liked in
Yeah.
accordance to how you wanted to set up your team. And if
Right.
you can get a consensus that certain players that are better than what you may have taken or better players than what your the website has picked for you, you have a better indication of what sort of players and what sort of team that you can put together and how to maximize off your particular draft position.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
Yep. And I think I'll just to kind of elaborate on that. As far as that, looking at the draft and understanding the players, one of the questions that comes up all the time is understanding the value of different positions and picking those positions. Where do you take them in different rounds relative to
absolutely.
the round, the 10 team, 12 team, and 12 team leagues. One of the things you have to look at is understanding again your rules as far as your scoring, but also understand how the league has started to shift back and forth on what they put in as far as value in the offenses. I mean, we had eras where the running backs were at certain value. You go back in the day of the Priest Holmes and the Jamal Lewises and You know, those particular running backs, Steven Davis's and those guys back in the
Eddie
day.
George's.
Eddie George's, you know, and then all of a sudden there was a shift to quarterbacks and a lot of emphasis on throwing, and it went back to running backs a little bit. And now it seems like I think it's somewhere in the middle, but more now in the pass attack with the receivers. So there's two things to that, and I'll put on there are some running backs out there that are going to be of first round value that you would probably have to jump on pretty early if you have a chance. And Le'Veon Bell, Marshawn Lynch's, those guys are pretty legit. There's Jamal Charles. You really have to. I mean, DeMarco Murray is
Adrian Peterson
question mark, but he probably is going to get the ball a lot just like he did last year. So you got to look at him. Adrian Peterson, if LaShawn McCoy can stay healthy, he'll be one of those guys. But you also have to understand that, you know, a lot of people say, well, you can always find a quarterback here. Hey, those top line quarterbacks, even with Jordan Nelson going out, Aaron Rodgers and Peyton Manning and
Andrew Luck,
Phillip Rivers. I mean, yeah, those folks, yeah, Andrew Luck definitely this year. They're worthy of first round. Don't be afraid if you just happen to have that 7th pick or that 8th pick. And you see some of these top running backs go early. Don't be afraid to take that quarterback. And then if you're in a snake format, it's okay to get you a low 1 or a high 2 if you got a top 1 quarterback. Understand how that
low 1, high 2 running back.
Right, running back with that top 1 quarterback. Yeah, because I mean you have to understand how the points are going to balance out throughout your picks, and then understand where you have the advantage within your position. So that's where the mock draft practice comes in, because then that'll give you what Previn was saying is understanding where you may have the advantage in a particular round, because maybe you don't have the advantage in the first couple of rounds, but maybe down the line in that 3rd or 4th or maybe 5th round, you'll be able to get more value picks based on the fact that you've taken the time to go through those mock drafts and understand how players are falling.
Yeah, and to go back and touch on that a little bit, there's a couple other things to be understood. As Pete mentioned, you're assessing the value. Now, it depends on your approach. Particularly, you have an early to mid-round pick there, where I took Andrew Luck with the 10th pick in the first round. Okay, obviously the running backs had been gone through up to that point, and some of the top 1 receivers were gone. Even Gronkowski was gone. Now, I don't care whether you're in pick 3 or pick 12. You know, one thing you do want to consider, you know, why an Aaron Rodgers still goes first overall. Running backs, they're a commodity. Their value is high because there's just not that many good ones. But when you stack it up, particularly in our league, where, you know, what I try to do is balance the points across all the positions. So if you're not able to get a certain player of a certain caliber at a position, you have a chance to make up the points with another position if you stack it and balance it properly, and if you draft well, which I didn't, but that's a different story. My point is, running backs are a commodity, okay? There's not that many of them, so their value is high. However, the value might not be high based on the sheer number of points scored. So one way of looking at it, should you want to, is it's not so much the position as it is the points. Getting the most points that you think you're going to maximize at your particular pick per round. And it doesn't really matter what pick you have.
It really doesn't.
I mean, let's face it. Who was the top running back last year in fantasy?
I think it was Le'Veon Bell. Well,
yeah. Did he score as many points as Aaron Rodgers?
No.
Exactly.
No. He didn't score as many points as Phillip Rivers, probably.
Right. So I understand the rush on the top running back being early because there's just not that many of them. And with running backs, it's feast or famine. You know, when you're in that 3rd round, 4th round, you're rolling the dice on maybe some rookies or a second-year guy and hope he pops, and somebody will. Yeah. But odds are, if you're waiting to that 3rd, 4th, 5th round for that running back, you're going to get crap. So, you know, that in mind, it's a decision you have to make out there. Do you value the points or do you value the commodity? Because, yeah, you can go back in that 3rd, 4th round, 5th round, even 6th round and get Tony Romo. He's going to put up points. Will he put up Aaron Rodgers points? No, but it's not that big of a drop off.
No, it's not. And from that point, think about, when you see these rankings and pre-rankings, and they're predicting the points, you know, over a total, right? Over a total season. But what you want to do is you want to break those points down, like Previn said, by week. And when you break it down by week on average, you find that maybe a Tony Romo is only 4 or 5 points on average lower than an Aaron Rodgers. The key is, though, what position did you get to make up those 4 or 5 points? Whether you got a top pick in a receiver position, tight end, defense, or even a kicker for that matter, that might get you an extra couple of points. That's the way you play the game. So when you see these rankings, just because a person has a total amount of points, you have to understand by week, it may only be a 4 or 5 point discrepancy. So when you're adding up your points during the week and you're trying to win, you need to just find those find where you can make up those points by picking the right matchup, or, like I say, where we're talking draft, picking a player maybe higher in a position early on than you may do, as far as the draft and the round. So just kind of keep that in mind as far as the total points versus average per week. And I think you'll see it from a different perspective when you're drafting.
Right. Of key importance, you can read any source online, print magazine, talk to anybody in your office, and the consensus is going to be the same. If you want to have a chance to make the playoffs in your fantasy league or win your fantasy league, you've got to nail the first 2 rounds. Now, that part is kind of easy. You very rarely see somebody blow a second round pick. Just get some guy that you're like, huh? Is he even playing? You always get that one dude that wasn't informed, that he picked somebody who was hurt. I'm not talking about him. Okay, so 10, 12 team leagues, 15 team leagues, everybody gets a good player, a really good player in the first 2 rounds. Now, my personal problem historically, when I'm good, it's been when I draft well in rounds 5 through 7. When I'm bad, I'm really bad because I don't do well in rounds 5 through 7. And I've gone back and studied exactly where I've gone wrong. And part of that, in trying to correct that, again, can be done through the mock drafts. And I've been doing this long enough. When I did this last draft last week, in the 5th round, 6th round, when I was making my picks, I knew I was doing bad. And I compounded my errors. And I went back and looked in the draft, and immediately, and I saw exactly, I knew I was not going to have a good team because I left some good players on the board. And the reason why I left some of those good players was I second-guessed myself after making that first bad pick. And my advice now is, looking back at that, especially if you're in a 12 or 15 team league, when you get into that 5th through 7th range, do not be afraid to reach at that point. If there's somebody you really feel in your heart, regardless of the rankings, you'll have a lot of information on points, projections, and rankings. If there's somebody you feel you have to have, do not be afraid to just add that player to your roster.
I'm gonna piggyback on that real quick. If you're in any type of league, if you're in a 10-team league, the talent is going to be, you're going to have a lot of talent, even down in the 5, 6, and 7 range. When you get to a 12 and 15-team league, that talent starts to kind of run a little thin. But if you think about it,
round 4.
Well, but if you think about it, though, most rosters are 8 and 9 player rosters as far as week to week when you're playing fantasy. If you get 4 good picks up front, and they're going to be probably your 4 core players that you're going to play pretty much every week except for bye weeks, most of your points are going to come from those 4. So to Previn's point, some people get real simple philosophy at round 5 and they just take best player available, and then they, if they take too many running backs, they'll cut one and figure it out in waivers on the first week. But like Prev said, at that point, take a philosophy. Either, some people take best player available. You pick the player that you feel might, reach for whatever you want at that point, because if you've done your work at the first 4 players, those are going to be the main bulk of your points during the season anyway. So at that point, don't second guess yourself. Pick a philosophy, stick with it, and just move forward.
Right. And also, in bringing that up, um, oh man, just had a brain fart.
No, it's
Yeah.
okay. It's just live. It's just live TV. It's okay. It's live
It's
podcast.
just live. It's just live.
Live.
It'll
No big
come
deal.
back up.
No big
But
deal.
yeah, to Pete's point, yeah, your first four players are going to be the bulk of your point. The next one's in either best available or whoever. Everything okay?
Yeah, we good. This our
You got
Q and
that
A
look on
was
your face.
featured with disabled. That was interesting. Okay, go ahead.
Oh man. Um, yeah. One thing I had a philosophical discussion. This kind of goes back to points per value. When do you take a defense, and how many? Now, the internet experts and the print magazines all say the same thing because their advice is based around standard scoring per whatever website that they promote work on. Like the ESPN guys, they put teams together on the ESPN website. So they don't tinker with the rules that ESPN's website has, which means that their defensive values are probably a little bit lower than, say, for example, ours. I kind of added some hefty bonuses for defense, like for a shutout or holding to a certain number, a few yards. We're probably going to see more scoring on the defenses. So, me personally, I tend to first of all, just say go back and check your defensive points rules. That'll determine, how you regard a defense in your particular league. Um, if it's standard, yeah, you can probably hold off till the later rounds, 13, 14, 15, to start working on the defense. My opinion, though, is if your defensive rules have been customized, if you can get whoever's that consensus best rock solid defense that rings up a bunch of sacks and turnovers, and you're going to get a lot of points for holding a team to just a handful of yards, it's the same thing to me as taking, I don't know, a mid range quarterback perhaps a little bit earlier because you're not really looking at the position, you're looking at the points. Some guys in my office are talking the philosophy of streaming defenses, where they might take a mid-grade defense really late and they only have one, and then they'll cut guys or make room on their roster on a week-to-week basis to try and pick up defenses with the best particular matchups, or in some cases they'll just follow bad offensive teams around throughout their schedule.
Yep.
um,
Okay.
that's something you'll have to figure out for yourself out there. I don't think it's a bad approach. I personally would rather not cut players to pick up defenses if I didn't have to. That's just me. So I usually try to keep two on the roster. I know at some point I'll be down to one, probably after one of the bye weeks.
Right. Yeah. Anyway, man. But got anything else to add before we get out of here?
Um, well, you see our Twitter handles here, so
There you go.
we'll be posting observations feeds. Like I said, I did a Periscope earlier this week, and you
Right.
can expect more Periscopes from myself and hopefully Pete and hopefully the rest of the Double S crew playing fantasy. We'll observations, something that's going on, something big. Like I said, we had a Nelson injury, so I had to have some good interact there. Want to thank y'all. Follow us on our Double S Project YouTube channel. Follow us on Twitter. Follow us on Facebook group page. Um, if you like this video, you think we're doing a service for you, hit the thumbs up button.
Yep.
Yeah,
And that's it.
yeah. We'll be back at you next week.
All right. Peace.
All right, thanks, man.